Welcome to the author interview here at Ink to Script Literary. Today, we are joined with James Domenighini, the author of Chaos Company. Chaos Company is a science fiction that moves to a wide journey to interstellar marines with its main protagonist, Leon Biela. I'm attorney Vanessa Hernandez from the legal department of Ink to Script Literary. Glad to be with us, and thanks for joining us today, James.
Thank you.
Before we delve into your book, can you tell us a bit about yourself and your journey as a writer?
Well, my journey as a writer took a long time. I had to spend 9 years teaching myself how to write better. I studied writing in college, but that doesn't make you a decent writer just to take a few classes in college, you know.
Yeah.
And my first efforts at writing was very juvenile, and I realized that. And so one day I gathered all my bad writing up and went out. I lived on a farm at that time, my family's farm, and I went out to a dry irrigation ditch, put all those papers in there, threw a little kerosene on and burned them because it wasn't worth keeping any of that. You had to start fresh. And then I spent 9 years working on my first novel, which was called Sky Knights, set in the same universe as Chaos Company.
Chaos Company. It's really true that in school we are only taught about the theories rather than the realities of life. So, yeah,
That's true. But you have to read about people, not just fiction, but nonfiction. You have to find biographies to really understand people.
yeah, because you were in love with science fiction since your childhood, and
Very
you got
true.
interested into military history also.
Hmm.
I guess
Yeah.
that paved the way for Chaos Company.
Hmm.
Is that what inspired you to write this book, Chaos Company?
Pretty much. I wanted to, I've always enjoyed adventure science fiction. And then along that process, when I was teaching myself how to write, I was fascinated by what my eldest daughter had done. She studied art in college, and at the school that she went to, the liberal art school in Illinois that she attended, what they did was they had the students take two of the old great masters and learn everything about them and made them their mentors. So I did the same thing. I picked Edgar Rice Burroughs because he wrote such great adventure stories, and I learned from him that the important thing is to never let your story slow down. And I also picked Ray Bradbury because his writing is just so fantastic and so wonderful. And I remember in a biography of his once, an autobiography, he had said, just pick a character and go with him and see what he does. And so that's kind of what I did too. He also pointed out that modern writing depends upon dialogue.
Yeah.
Not too much, but you can't have too little. And I discovered 6 different things that dialogue needs to do. Among those is that it's not just to entertain the reader, but to forward the story and to develop the characters, because we don't know each other if we don't talk to each other.
You have really learned so much about the masters or the two masters that you liked. What are the best works that these two masters that you liked, that they have published, that gave you the inspiration to continue writing and do better at it?
Well, almost everything for Ray Bradbury. And for Edgar Rice Burroughs, in the year 1912, he started writing for the first time. He'd read several stories and he felt he could do better than them. So he created, his first novel was A Princess of Mars. In that same year, he also wrote Tarzan of the Apes. And Tarzan of the Apes, at the beginning of it, is considered one of the 100 best beginnings ever written.
Wow.
Where the author introduces his story by saying, I got this story from somebody who had no business telling it to me. And then he goes on from there.
Those are really great masters that you had.
Hmm.
So, what are the challenges that you have encountered in writing this book?
Well, I don't think there were really too many challenges. What I what I want to do when I write an adventure novel is start with an action beginning. You know, um, for Chaos Company, the first line is "Death waited for me around the corner,"
Yes.
and then it goes on to explain everything about that. Would you like me to read a little bit of it?
Yes, if you can.
Oh, pardon me. I have the book right here.
Okay.
This is Chaos
Chaos
Company.
Company.
Hmm. This is chapter one. As I said, it begins with this. And pardon me for taking off my glasses. They're
Hi.
for distancing, but not for reading.
No
Death
worries.
waited for me around the corner. An alien, a killer, a nightmare out of the darkest of all nightmares, desired my death. It knew where I waited just as I knew where it waited. The sensors on our armored suits revealed where we were to each other because we both had our defensive energy screens powered up. We knew each other's location. We even knew how dedicated we were to killing each other. We just didn't know what the other was going to do the next moment. The next. I guess it's left out there. My mistake.
Okay.
You know, I wrote that 7 years ago, 8 years ago. Well, I had it published in 2019, so I think I was working on it in 2015. So it's a long time to remember it. I can remember some of it, but it's nice to have it written down for me to look at.
You really give great time to polish your book before really publishing it, and it's uh,
Hmm.
a good way to it's a good opportunity to give great books to your readers. So, based on the book, it's an action or a sci-fi. And can you share to us a glimpse of the technology used by the interstellar marines since they fight against alien invaders who seek to destroy all the things?
Well, first off, I had this idea a long time ago, long before Elon Musk to create a
Wow.
chip to put into people's brains. But in my in this universe, the chip is made out of our own DNA, so it's not rejected by our bodies.
Okay.
And then it's mostly for not controlling yourself so much as controlling your technology. What you think happens. The technology does what you want it to do. And secondly, your body is full of millions of little nanites to help take care of it and to fight radiation poisoning and stuff like that. And those are also made from your own DNA.
Okay.
So it's not just a
Technology.
artificial thing, but
Yeah.
it's an inclusive
It's
technology.
inside. Yeah, yeah. It's within the body.
Yes, it is.
So you were interested in military history, as what is written in your autobiography. Did that interest help in military tactics, or did some research or thorough research about military tactics?
Yes, I did. You have to, as a writer, you have to know as much as you can about your subject before you put it down.
Yeah.
So there's interesting things that are going on here. My Marines fly around on little flying discs. In the 1950s, the United States Army that built little flying platforms by that, but they had a short range. They only were good for about 100 feet, so it was not really a good tool to have. And then the battery was dead, and you had to be on the ground before you crashed. So, and here's an interesting thing. Before even that, when I was growing up, there was these little toy dolls called Matt Mason astronauts. They were 6 inches tall, and they came on these little discs so they'd stand up straight. So that's where that idea came from me, because I had them flying around on the moon on these little discs with an anti-gravity projection.
So what inspired you to create the setting, the planet Eos?
Well, to begin with, I wanted this to be another version of War of the Worlds, but I always felt that what it would have been like if aliens invaded Earth, and we had the same technology that they had. Now, the movie Independence Day, the sequel to it, is like that, but I wanted it to be, and I had written this book before Independence Day 2 came out. So, Independence Day, the original one, is just War of the Worlds with a different name on it. And so I have to have for a moment here to think, but basically, I wanted it to be an adventure, and I wanted it on a different world, and I wanted it. Nobody really talks about stories like this, where it's on a planet that both humans and Gorgons want to colonize, and they don't get along, so they go to war with each other.
Yes. But Chaos Company does not only focused on the war against the invaders, but it strives against the cold-hearted Marines and the self-righteous officers. So it's not only about the war.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, it has to be. You have to make it personal, and you have to put conflict in there. I didn't read much of John Grisham's uh, mysteries and stuff, but I remember one of the things he said in the interview was, if you don't have conflict, you don't have a story. So I had to have conflict in there.
Yeah.
And, you know, human beings are human beings. We get along, but we all have ulterior motives sometimes, and that gets in the way because ego gets in the way. So
That's
that's what I do. And I try to put some humor in my book too, because we're people and we like to crack jokes and tease each other and stuff like that. And that's part of the reality of who we are.
correct.
And so I wanted my characters to be that way, to not be
So your
one dimension.
fiction, yeah, it's character-based, right, James?
It is.
Did you create them because of the people and friends you know, or they're just fictional
I,
characters?
they're fictional characters. They're not really based on anybody per se. Um, there's, there are things in there like my brother and I used to tease each other all the time, and as grown-ups, we'd play practical jokes on each other sometimes. So I put stuff like that in there. And in the beginning of the story, after the Marines get back to their base and stuff, they get involved in a food fight with each other. And reading about veterans in Vietnam, I found out that sometimes when they came back, they had so much tension built up in them that a good food fight was the only way to get it out. So I figured I might as well put one in there too.
How about the main protagonist, Leon Biela? Is he also a fictional character or
He
something
is.
you know?
He is.
Okay.
His name is pronounced Lion Baila.
Lion Biela.
Yes,
For
and
the
he's of Zulu and Maasai descent, which were the two most powerful native tribes in Africa.
Okay. Building a sci-fi universe can be intricate. Did you have a series planned from the outset, or is Chaos Company a standalone story?
No, it's not a standalone story. As I mentioned earlier, my first novel was Sky Knights about fighter pilots.
So this is the second one.
This is the second. This is not, and it's not part of Chaos Company. It's
Okay, okay,
separate, but Chaos Company followed it.
okay.
And Sky Knights is interesting because long before Star Wars, I had that idea. I was out on a ranch one night in 1974. That's 3 years before Star Wars. So that maybe they were working at the same time. And in the mountains to the west of us, there was this tremendous lightning storm with flashes of light and lightning bolts and thunder constantly. And I just started thinking, what if that's people in spaceships or fighter planes fighting up there in that storm? So that's where I got that idea. But it took me a long time to develop that into anything.
So your
So
novel are really based on, or the genre of your novel are sci-fi.
mhm. I like science fiction adventure, and I like adventure stories. That's what's great about Edgar Rice Burroughs. Ray
Uh,
Bradbury likes more character development, and I love that about him.
Yeah.
And his characters get in all kinds of in situations. He doesn't just write science fiction; he writes everything,
I
except
hope
West.
someday I hope I can see series of your works just like the Star Wars or the Star Trek.
That would be very nice.
Uh, in your opinion, James, if we are to live in planet Eos, what could be our survival percentage, or can we survive in planet Eos?
Well, I came up with the idea of another Earth-like planet, but one where there's no intelligent life forms evolved. Haven't reached that point yet. So we find it, we terraform it with trees and plants from Earth. So we'll have something that we can live off of and things like that. And so the air is a little pure. And the aliens want the same thing. They want the same planet because their race is expanding and our race is expanding. And right now, both sides are very existent.
Think that what the future may come for us when today, in the present, our modern technologies are rapidly developing. So, in the near future, what do you think would be the future for us in a fast-paced world where technologies are developed here and then?
Well, to begin with, in my career as a writer, I wanted to be, when I graduated from college in 1983, I started college in 1973, but it took a few years off to earn some money so my dad didn't have to pay for it all. And in 1983, I graduated with a degree in journalism, and I wanted to be a copy editor. Unfortunately, that year, everybody decided that a computer could do it all. And so a couple of weeks after I graduated, the entire industry of publishing around the world laid off 15,000 copy editors. And then 2 months later, they laid off another 17,000. So there was no jobs for me to do. So I did a lot of different jobs in my life. And I kept coming back to the family farm to work because it's really great to work with your family on a farm. It's really a nice thing to do. So as far as the technology is, in those days, that technology, what the computer can do, was a form of AI. And they discovered that, well, it could edit and it could handle syntax and spelling and things like that. That's what only 10% of what copy editors did. They had to know everything there was to know about the whole world, how people are dressed in different cultures, what their names mean, what they do, how it affects them, all those things. You have to know geography too. I remember in 1994 reading one of the major newspapers talking about this peacekeeping force from the United States Army in Kosovo. And the writer got the three seas around that portion of land, which is Yugoslavia, wrong. He had the Aegean Sea, where the Black Sea is, the Adriatic, which is between Italy and Yugoslavia. He put it down where the Aegean is, and he put the Black Sea where the Adriatic should have been. And there were no copy editors for that newspaper to catch that.
Yeah.
So I think technology is something that will be a blessing for us, but anybody who wants to go out and just live in nature has that possibility too. And it'll just depend on whether or not we can keep our egos out of the way.
Yeah, so as a matter of fact, some companies or factories are actually replacing manual works with the robots because of technology. Uh, James, are you currently working on any new projects that you can share with us, or is this the latest book that you have, Chaos Company?
Now, after Chaos Company, I wrote another novel, which is a sequel to it called Chaos Allies, where my character who was Lion, he's in it, and where in the previous novel, Chaos Company, he's trying to hold on to his humanity. In Chaos Allies, he lets his own ego get the better of him. And in fact, everybody in that book, almost every character, they're letting their egos take over, and they're all acting selfishly. And so that's the main theme of that book.
Did the team survive in Chaos Company?
I think you should read it to find out. But I also would like to say that I have a third novel right now that I'm working on called Chaos Escape. And it still had Lion by Ellis and all these stories, but not everybody that's in one story is in the next story.
Okay. Uh, Lastly, James, where can we purchase your book, Chaos Company?
Well, you can get it from either Amazon or Barnes and Noble. They have this thing where you ask for it and they'll print it up for you, and you pay for that, and then they'll ship it out to you. So both, like I said, both Barnes and Noble and Amazon have that available for you.
Okay. Uh, Before we end this interview, what takeaway do you want your readers to get from your book, Chaos Company?
I want them to know that uh, it's not so much a case of getting along as it is a case of being kind to other people, or to know who you are, but not try to control other people. Just have a good time reading the book, and whatever you learn from it that fits you is fine. The whole purpose of all fiction is to show you reveal different ideas to you and let you pick from them what you can do or what you would like to be.
Yeah, I hope our audience will read your book, Chaos Company. Uh,
I do too.
uh, James, thank you so much for your time today. That has been a fantastic conversation. And thank you for sharing your insights and your experiences with us today. I hope you
You're
have a
welcome.
good afternoon, James.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your time. Bye bye.
Bye bye.